Hey, what's up everyone? It's Duskmost. Today we're taking a look at the 20% more from Fairfield Circuitry. Let's check it out. Well, hello. Thank you for joining today. For this look at the Fairfield Circuitry 20% more, a slew limiting distortion that can get pretty gnarly and is a lot of fun. All right, now that my goofy intro's out of the way, we're going to take a look at this today, which has a lot of controls, as you can see. Pretty interesting sounds. It definitely gets really gnarly, as I mentioned. Really spattering, sputtering. Even has oscillations that when it gets maxed feedback, it'll make these pitched sounds that can kind of play along with what you're playing with or play against what you're playing into it. And it's definitely a different take on a distortion. It's not your typical. Kind of reminds me a little bit of like a fuzz in a way. Obviously like a distortion. But there's also, like, I think it's Montreal Assembly. They had like the PLL, I think it is, which was a pretty crazy sort of squelchy, screaming kind of thing. And if it's not from them, I apologize. But this is that same kind of vibe that's pretty cool. Nicely though, on board you've got controls for blend, your input level, obviously output volume, but there's an LPG, which is essentially your filter, a feedback control, and the slew. And the slew is sort of the core of the 20% more. And slew, if you're not familiar, is kind of from the Eurorec world. I guess maybe before that even just like scientific voltage type control. And what that does is control the rate at which the voltage that is incoming can change. And in this case, it sculpts the sound of the 20% more. And as I mentioned, mixed with the feedback, you get those, I guess it's like triangle wave oscillations, I believe. So it can get kind of synthy too. These toggles here are for an envelope follower or envelope follower, where you can have it hit the feedback or the filter. And you've got a up octave, which if it's flipped up for 1, it's up, and then 0 is off. And then you've got D for down octave. 1 in the top position is just 1 below, and then to the bottom position is 2 below, and then the middle is off. You've got your mono ins and outs on the bottom here, 9-volt power, but you've also got a CV expression jack here, and then a little mini Eurorack style 3.5 mil to control the slew amount. As I said, this thing gets pretty crazy. We're going to hear just how crazy with the Critter Guitari Pocket Piano. This is the OG one. So obviously that's going into the 20% more in mono, coming out mono, going into the TX6, and then out into the camera. So I'm going to run through some sounds, some ARPs, and just tweak it, and let's just see what we get. So straight away you heard this organ sound. Let's go ahead and add some 20% more. So we got filter. Get up some feedback. And here it starts to break up and get kind of crazy when you get more of like a complex sound going through, like a chord. But these single notes, they rip through pretty cleanly. Change up the slew amount. That sounds pretty cool. changing the input, and change the response as well. You hear that self-oscillation kind of ringing. You can starve it too to get those little distortion moments. Barely cutting through. This is with no down octave. Let's add one. Go to 2. Add the up octave. You hear it screaming when I let off the notes. So that's some of that triangle wave oscillation stuff. High feedback. Again, kind of that synthy character I was talking about. Or you can starve it out. This, you can hear it maybe here. It's feeding a little bit of a sound, which probably contributes to that feedback kind of taking off. But let's try a different sound. Go back to clean here. We'll do this ARP. All right, let's go ahead and engage the 20% more. You can change the envelope to the feedback. Probably isn't the best example for that. And in the manual, it mentions the slew also sort of acts as like a secondary sort of crusty, distorted filter. And even at this point where it's generating a tone, it's like a filter, but it's also sort of like a pitch control. Pretty crazy. let's try a different sound. Like this. A little faster. Full filter sweep. It almost gets kind of like 8-bit sounding, which is kind of cool. And then you starve it and it does that. Back to clean. Try another one. Something real blippy like this. Interesting. Let's extend that note length. Here, working the feedback with the envelope. Let's do a filter. That's pretty cool. Pretty crazy. Try different sounds slightly. Speed it up. It's like some Doom stuff. Some really good sub bass in there. Okay, try another sound. Here it really kind of rip out when the note decays. Pretty interesting. All right, and we'll do one more ARP kind of thing like this. Kind of blend it out for a little bit more subtle, just dirt in the background. And there we go. That is my first look at the 20% more. I think a really different sort of spin on a distortion. Definitely synthy, a little bit fuzzy. It's nice having the LPG there to tame some of that high crunchiness, to make maybe something that might be a little bit too intense, a little bit more chill, maybe a little bit more usable. Pretty cool having the envelope directionality, being able to go between the feedback and the filter, and the octave stuff is handy as well. Really kind of changes up the overall output. I think it'd be pretty cool to control this over CV, either the slew or just a programmable CV amount. You can tweak with the little, I think little jumper pins on the inside of the pedal. There might be those little micro toggles, but yeah, it lets you direct that CV to whatever kind of control you want to control. If you're curious about that, I'll have a link to the one sheet for this and all that kind of stuff, so you can kind of check it out a little bit more if you haven't already. But pretty cool, pretty different, and I really appreciate having the blend, so you can, like I showed in that one example, just kind of have it in the background if you just want a little bit of kind of like a dirty, dusty grime grit in the background. Pretty cool. But I'd like to shout out Fairfield for sending this out to me to demo on the channel and share with all of you. Been a big fan of their stuff for a long time now. If you're curious about any of their other stuff that I've covered, you'll find those on my channel. Maybe I'll link to some of my favorites as well in the description. Hint, hint, the Meet Maude and the Shallow Water, I think, are some true classics from Fairfield. Anyway, on that note, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.